You are listening to iRadio TT, online all the time.
Welcome to Music Matters, the Caribbean edition. The podcast series featuring news, interviews and analysis of all the music from the islands.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Music Matters,
the Caribbean edition. I am Laura Dowrich.
And I'm Nigel Campbell. And once again, we're talking about the business of music here in the Caribbean.
Yes, we are, Nigel. We are fresh off of Trinidad Carnival. Lots to talk about.
Trinidad Carnival, Dominica Carnival, all those countries that follow the kind of French Caribbean Lenten Carnival. But say what? Trinidad Carnival is hot season. As I said, two things happened. One thing I got, whatever virus was going around, I got that. But say what? So I ain't gonna lie, I probably missed Tuesday. I ain't gonna lie, I just wasn't around for Tuesday. So I missed all the action, all the activity and thing. And I know you suffered in silence up in Turks and Caicos and probably had Mr. Elon Musk's rocket falling on yourself.
Plenty excitement here, but nothing like Trinidad. And yes, it was my second year in a row missing Carnival at home. But thanks to social media, I was very, very plugged in, watching everything. And I have to say, I think the music this year was one of the best. This is one of the best years for music. A lot of people are comparing it to 2015 and saying this since 2015. This 2015 was a stellar year for music, and this year, 2025, seemed to match and probably surpass that. Kudos to all of our artists, songwriters, producers. The music was amazing. And one of the things I noted, Groovy Soca still reigns supreme in Trinidad, but we saw some power coming back, and I want to shout out the Vikings for really keeping that alive. Thanks to them. Of course, it was another carnival at Marshall Montano. He's back. He's graduated, no more studies. He came back
1 degree hotter. That is what you call it.
1 degree hotter is the name of his album. He came back roaring this year. If you missed him last year or the year before, man, he made up for all of it. He was everywhere.
Yeah,
he was everywhere. And of course, he is the new Road March champ of Trinidad Carnival 2025, and with the song Pardy, which is a brilliant song. Brilliant song that really anybody could relate to this song. Yeah. It's an anthem for all of us who are overworked and stressed and tired and fed up. And I'm very, very proud, Nigel, that we have the writer of the song here with us on Music Matters, Mr. Andre Jeffers. Now, Andre is a man, people don't understand, he all over the newspapers. Today, the day we are recording this interview, he all over the newspapers. He's starring fully into the spotlight, but Andre is a man been bubbling behind the scenes. He's not new to this. He's true to this, and we're just very, very happy to have you here, Andre. Welcome to Music Matters, the Caribbean edition.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Nigel, for having me. I am a fan of the show, and I knew they would come up. I knew they would come up to anything to do with the business of the industry is interesting. And so, a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation for sure.
Not a problem. Laura, start us off.
Well, congrats on your Road March win, Andre. Congratulations. Pardy reigns supreme. Let me tell you, from the day Pardy dropped, I said on Facebook, this is the Road March.
Serious?
I have been successfully calling Road Marches since Fayan won with Display. I have not failed. There were a couple of years I was on the fence, but I called it this year. I said it. I love Carried, but as a masquerader, Pardy did to me what it was supposed to do for masqueraders.
Awesome.
So congratulations on that. And
Thank you.
That is why you're in the newspapers in Trinidad today, the day that we're recording this show. So
Sunday.
let's start with Pardy and tell us how. You had a bit of an essay on LinkedIn talking about how Pardy came about.
Yeah.
So tell us that story for those who did not read the newspapers or did not see that post.
So I typically get started in the creative side of things pretty late. So I would take a break from Ash Wednesday and not reach in a studio until June, right? So I think this last year in particular, I started with my Memo. Those are the producers I typically work with. And I was working on something else by Mevon, another song. It didn't come out. A song we really liked, a song that we thought would really make some noise. And on the second session, as I typically do, I said, Mevon, put this, because Mevon, unlike most producers, Mevon makes a beat every day.
Wow.
So if you leave from my Mevon 3 weeks ago and come back to finish a session, Mevon have 10, 12 beats new, fresh. Right?
That's excellent.
That's his routine. That's his routine. He'll wake up, take it like a job, wake up and make a beat. So when Mevon just play some things for me, and he played the beat that eventually was Pardy. And when he played it, he pulled up all the files, he stripped it down, he just had the music only, the drums back, and said, Mevon, send me that. That sound like it could take, as I say, it sounded like it could take a monster on it. It sounded like it's big enough, it could handle a monster, right? So anyway, so he sent the beat to me, and I went back to my substantive job. I am the Chief Strategy Officer at Antibacal and responsible for all mergers, acquisitions, divestments, or corporate transactions across the group. And we had been working on a very large transaction, the acquisition of Beach Tech, chemical company based in the US that we bought for $300+ million US. But we've been working on that for 18 months. And we closed that deal in November 2024. And I got the beat from everyone in August. And those last 2 or 3 months of closing were the hardest. We were trying to close the financing and kind of wrap things up. Me and my team were working nonstop, late nights. And I subconsciously, that messaging was in my brain, because when I started, so what I usually would do is take a walk. I usually walk to de-stress, and when I'm de-stressed, I usually listen to any beats I may have and see what ideas come up. So I was listening to the beat Mevon said, and I was like, yo, this is fire. And the first thing that came to me was 2 things. One was the beat was so traditional, I felt I could take a risk. So it would give me enough ground cover that if I decide to take a risk on it, it will still feel balanced, right? So I was thinking, I want to do like a techno chant at the top. Like, I don't know why, but those keys just make me feel like a nice pop type chant would work here.
We work so hard every week. Explicit, boy. We deserve a party. So tell everybody. And let's get it started.
And that's how I started. And I was like, and the first words that came to me were, we work so hard every week, we deserve a party. And it was Pardy because the influence in terms of what I wanted to do was pop. I just felt like that would work. And if you stack it and layer it on, like, that would be so interesting. And as I said in one of the articles today, my rule of thumb is the first idea I get on a song that I like, I stick to it. Like, that's the only immovable thing. Everything else could change around, but that's the only way to stop you having analysis paralysis, right? And I started kind of building it from there, the idea, taking my voice notes, whatever. But I still had the other song to finish. So I went back by Mevon about a week later, and we trying to finish the song. And I'm like, Mevon, I can't concentrate on the song because the other beaches said, man, have an idea fit, boy, and it's strange and weird. But I'm telling you, it could work. And he's like, oh, okay, all right. So anyway, so that song never really got finished, the other one. And I went on by Kyle Phillips, who I do all my recordings for my demos for, and I started putting it down. And I remember Kyle and me like, you're sure? And I'm like, I'm telling you, just trust me. Trust me, it's going. So it was me, Kyle, Kyle's sister Carice, and another guy who sings my demos, a guy named Kendall Hayes. And they started stacking the vocals, and the song started coming along. And in about 2 or 3 hours, we had a demo version done. And I sent it to Mevon, and I said, Mevon, all caps, Pardy. And he listened, and no response that night. I'm like, okay, interesting. The next morning, he responded. He's like, yeah, I know I said properly there. I ain't really feeling it, bro. This really not like you. Yeah, I feel like you strip away all the emotions from the beat. I feel it song a little typical. I just not feeling it, bro. Like, it was scathing. It wasn't your sort of, I want to let you down easy, right? It was scathing. But we have that kind of relationship. I said, Mevon, you sure, boy? I said, listen, soak on it for a day or 2. I will soak on your feedback. You soak on the song, and let's reconvene. And I didn't talk to Mevon for like the next week. And I said, Kyle, Mevon don't like this. Kyle was like, Mevon, sure. I was like, yeah, but he don't like it. But I was like, but there's something here. Anyway, so I was like, look, Mevon, I'm going back in the studio. I'm going to take some of your feedback on board. I want to move some of the parts around. Send me the stems for it now, because I want to rearrange the music because the music's stifling me. And if I want to do what I think I need to do to make it right, I need to move music around and, change stuff around. He was like, you sure why you need stems? I was like, yeah, I need it. He didn't send it to me, document. I come back the next week. I said, Mevon, I need these stems. Or else it's not going to go anywhere. So he downloaded all these stems, he sent it to Kyle. I mean, move parts around. I redid the first. Before, I think the first demo version, I had the Pardy is a party chant at the top. And then it was just really more moving around the parts and then a rewriting a part. And then I sent him that version after that. He said, this song is a lot better. And then the next morning, he said, yeah, I like it. He played for some people, they liked it. He made some other suggestions around what to move around. So there's really more around moving around pieces to make it flow. So when we got into where we wanted to get it, he was like, all right, Marshall had liked the beat. You should send it to Boy. I said, well, Boy not going to like this. So let's wait. Because, again, I sent Come Home to Boy first.
Yes.
That was supposed to be for Boy.
I heard that.
And Marshall said, I like it, but it needs to de-Yankee-rise. He said the demo was a little too
Could you just stick up in for half a second?
Sure.
Come Home, that was Nigel and Skinny Fabulous. You wrote that, and you sent it to Marshall, and with the potential of Destra being this female singer. And he said no?
Yeah. No, let me, because I tell him he said no, and he always corrects me. He didn't say
correct,
no.
Please. All right.
He didn't say no. He sent very detailed feedback, which I always appreciate about him. But he said it needs a lot of work. In particular, I need to de-Yankee-rise. It's a little too pop, and I need to bring it back to local parlance. I could work with it, right? But as impatient young songwriters and producers, when you want to hear a lot, you can work with it and make sure if it ends up coming out. So we're like, all right, on to the next. And I think it fell into the right hands. Like, he even agrees that, the combination of Nyla and Skinny, because Nyla kept the sort of the pop leaning,
kept
the integrity of that, right? That was part of it. That was part of the music and part of the writing and everything. So, and then Skinny rocked it up the right way, so it worked, right? So we always
and here you are singing, about to send another pop
Pardy,
Yankee-rise with Pardy.
I just want to, if you don't mind me, again, stick it in here. I mean, I understand what Marshall is suggesting because he was looking at the local market, right?
Right.
But you as a songwriter, you don't necessarily look at the local market alone. What if you said, okay, it's a pop song and then I get Rihanna and somebody else to sing on top of the song? I mean, is that out of your realm of possibility if you're writing or producing a song?
Not at all. I typically don't have any ceilings on anything I do in life. I expect greatness. I expect that could very well happen, right? Not out of the ordinary. I'll be happy, but I wouldn't be shocked,
Gotcha.
I have a thesis. Around power soca. I'll get into that later on. I'm starting to see that it is right, and I'll connect to that later on. Anyway, so like, okay, let's send in the Pardy and let's see, and let him say no fast, and let's go down the list, right? And Mevon sent it to him, no response for like 2 or 3 days. And then Mevon was like, yo, Mevon calling me, I ain't work. I'm like, yo, Mevon calling on my phone. I said, Mevon at work. He's like, yo, Marshall is like, he liked the Pardy played on ice. He think this could be a big one. So I was like, yo.
Wow.
We ready, right?
Let's get it started. I'm telling you, all work and no play, me say, no way. We don't want no matter that. I need a stress reliever. 2 drinks in the hand and a girl in the middle. Like we come, we need to find the middle. For the sake of peace of mind, so the middle of the road is where you'll find me and my friend and them, because we want
and the rest is history. But that's really how the whole creative process happened, and it took a lot of me sticking to my guns about what I thought could work, but it also took, to be honest, Marshall sharing in that confidence. And this is one song I could say the artists love the song even more than the creators.
Wow.
I mean, when I tell you Marshall loves this song, from the first day, the care he painted, he blocked out everything else and said, this one, I spent about taking my time with this one. And you could see it. You could see in terms of when he was performing this season, he's singing it 3-4 times in his set. He's slowing it down. He's stripping it down. He's bringing it back. He opening with it. He's singing it in the middle. He closing with it. He doing that a cappella. He really felt like, and he said this all the time, it feels different to anything out there. He said, when have you ever heard a soca song start like that? Right?
Yeah.
And I think his confidence in it helped us when we were feeling a little, we sure about this? We sure about Pardy? In Trinidad Carnival? We sure?
It worked. Thousands of people agreed with Marshall. Hundreds of thousands, if I'm correct, in terms of the numbers. What I'm getting from you is that the creative process obviously is a collaborative process. It's not one man writes a song like Calypsonians of yesteryear. No, right? So they're producers and engineers who put the beats together, and then the artist himself has to say or nay or advise. I'm very happy about that. In terms of your catalog, right? Well, you mentioned that you were a writer or co-writer, since everything is collaborative, of Come Home, which is Skinny Fabulous and Nyla. But you also wrote Stage Gone Bad for Iowa George and Kess.
Correct.
So you already have a road march on their belt.
Absolutely.
The stage was good. Even for kiddies carnival, the stage was nice. A paradise. It was a paradise. But when I come back on carnival day, and I hear the big truck start to play, tell them when me and my section touch them is trouble. Because the stage not good again. The stage not good again. The stage not good again. After we trample for the
boom shot, that's you showing up.
I know, right? My writing journey started when I moved back to Trinidad. I was living in the States for about 10 years. I moved back and I was like, hey, this creative bug I have and this love for culture, I want to test it out. I want to see like how good I really am. And I started, I wrote a calypso for myself called Wimbledon. And I auditioned for Tent, and I got into the Tent in South. And I quickly realized after that season that me being on stage and singing wasn't for me, right? But I remember being in the Tent and everybody, Rascomanda, and everybody saying, "But hey, you have a real good song, you know. But you should just write songs and give other people, boy. I know for you to sing."
The honesty of artists, boy. You're not ready for this. You're not ready for that.
Boy. And even Kenny Phillips, who is my mentor in the music, was telling me, hey, you should start to write songs and sell it. They could do well. So the following day, I wrote a song for Tigress. I think she went into the Demarshka finals with that one. The following year, she asked for another one. I wrote that one. She only got to the semis with that one. And then, obviously, being in and around like Casey Phillips and Kyle and them, I was like, hey, I want to try and see if I could get into the soca thing, right? So this is all 2015, 16 now. And groovy soca is taken over the land, right? You barely have any power soca, but power soca is what I love. But obviously now when I go to these studios and I say Casey for stuff and Kyle for stuff, it's only groovy rhythms. And so I there trying to struggle to fit into this thing that isn't really me. I'm just trying to sound like everybody else. And it just wasn't working. And Casey is another brutally honest person to be like, wasn't taking me on after a while. It's like, nah, dog, this side. So thankfully, I had a young Kyle Phillips who was now coming into his own and had a level of patience that Casey didn't have. And Kyle and I started working very closely together, figuring it out, right? Both of us, he younger than me, but we both young in the thing and figuring it out. Figuring out what sound we like, figuring out whatever. And it was me that was telling Kyle, power soca is it, bro. Power soca is it. There's an energy missing from the carnival. And he would laugh and he would humor me. And 2017, we started working on a beat, a rhythm. I wrote a song on it. And that was the first soca that I came out with. And that was Iowa George's Savannah, Mama We Reach.
Yes.
I remember that, yeah.
2018. And we put it out the first day, and social media trash it.
Let me go. Savannah, Mama, we reach. Savannah, we finally reach. Savannah, hey, the bacchanal round starts. Because we reaching the Savannah. Put your hands up, jump up, put your hands up, Savannah. Put your hands up, jump up, put your hands up, Savannah. Put your hands up, jump up, put your hands up, Savannah. Put your hands up, well. Mash up the Savannah stage and mash up the Savannah stage and mash up the Savannah stage and mash up the Savannah stage. Put your hands up, jump up, put your hands up, Savannah. Put your hands up, jump up, put your hands up.
And
The honesty of Chinese.
I just sitting like, I get it wrong, boy. I really thought this was the energy. I get it wrong, and I'm taking all the comments that I had in my head. I remember it was Boxing Day. Me and my business partner, and we just like, yo, we miscalculated this thing real bad, boy.
But to be fair, Andre, most times when Iowa comes up with a song, we tend to trash it. But then Iowa have a kind of magic in him, a kind of OBL, because halfway down the road, the thing does go on here.
So to put your heart and soul and you go on YouTube and this is trash. I want to do the road march, this, whatever. And every week after that, the song just starts to build. Moving on, I was destroying the place. And all of a sudden, we front in the road march race. So I like my first song ever about with a road march. And then the kingdom come down. Marshall and Blue. And it was a fight. It was still a fight. But we ended up coming second that year. And that was, I guess, the start of the, me versus Marshall in terms of road marches. Because for me to do what I want to do, which is win a road march, I had to go through Marshall, right? As the road march came.
So I want to build on that. I am dying to build on that.
I have a question about road marches, but Laura, you go first.
Let me jump into the bacchanal, I like lacquery. So when you wrote, so Stage Gone Bad, I don't know how many people know this is something you wrote a year before.
Yes.
In the height of the famous soca wars, this was between Marshall and Iowa.
If you take Drake and Kendrick had problems, forget that.
And you at the time, you were moving heavy with Iowa. You were representing Iowa. You were moving heavy with Iowa. You was in the thick of the things with this war between Iowa and Marshall.
Yeah.
And here you are. I had a good chuckle to myself. I said, but look, Andre writing for Marshall this year. Look, Andre writing Road March. What is going on? Andre, what? I'm sure you and Marshall spoke about this and you probably had a good laugh about this. But tell me about that experience now working for Marshall. You've been up against Marshall all these years with Savannah, with Stage Gone Bad, that year with the war. And now here you are in Marshall camp, in the winning camp.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you working with Boy?
Sure. So things definitely. So 2018, I became known to him, obviously. But it was still all friendly then, right? He would come backstage and be like, George, all in the Savannah, I am in the kingdom. I'm so far, I done in the kingdom. We done one pass in Savannah. So that was amicable competition. 2019, we did this songs. It got a little heated.
A little.
And there was many a backstage heated conversation. What I would say though is that in the midst of all the heated conversation, which ended up being Marshall and his team against Iowa's team, and I was somewhere in the crowd somewhere, no part of it, right? I think there was always a level of intellectual respect between Iowa and his team and me and Andrew, my business partner, in terms of the level of conversation we were having, even in the midst of the debate. And so I think by the time Stage Gone Bad came around, And remember, I was sang on the both Road March contenders too. So that's a whole next.
Yes, he was on Kong Shell
Yeah.
and
On
Stage
Shell,
Gone Bad.
yep.
Yes.
And so I think by the time Stage Gone Bad came around, the relationship between Marshall and I was solid. We would see each other and hear each other. I would give him a little talk. And then I think what really helped was that, remember, it was then the pandemic. And then it was Marshall kind of sitting out a carnival. And so now our relationship was one way. When we see each other, we really just not having a conversation about competition. We're having a conversation about state of the industry, what kind of music working, what not working, where he's seeing the music going, when he eventually returns, what he wants his sound to feel like. So we were having those sort of conversations. I remember after Sunset in 2024 Carnival, me and Andrew at a double stand in St. James, and Marshall was driving past. I mean, just hear him, hey, and he take and he park and he come and we sit there for an hour in the hot sun, just talking the things of the music of Carnival. I was here, he sat out. So, and I played some stuff for him, and he played some stuff for us. So I think it was the pathway was building for us to collaborate. I think we respected each other a lot, obviously, and he respected my pen, and he saw what Stage Gone Bad did, he saw what Come Home did, and I think the window was always open for us to work together because the beef wasn't real beef, right? It was just competition.
Yeah.
And so actually the song that Mevon and I were working on before, we had sent a version of that to Marshall, and he had liked it. He wanted to tweak some things, but he had liked it. So that was a path to us potentially working together. And then 3 weeks later, we sent him Pardy. And so that's a journey to it. In terms of working with the company team, it's been a great experience. I mean, when you look at how efficient his team is, Marshall is the leader of his team. Marshall knows everything he wants to get done. His team is excellent at executing. And it really was a case study for me in being at the top of the game and understanding why it's really, when you talk about well-oiled machinery, it really is a well-oiled machinery. And the attention to detail and the execution excellence of his team, Shane, Nate, Roxy, and the whole team. Lady, I mean, clockwork.
Yeah.
Really impressive to see.
I think that is par for the course, certainly outside of Trinidad, but what you described in terms of Marshall's team, and I think it should be a kind of template for everybody else to use. But coming back to the conversation you're having just now about the idea, well, I send in a road march, and there's this constant conversation about a road march and what a road march can do for a career. Laura and I were having a little small conversation offline about that. But there's this idea that everybody wants a road march because a road march can do something for their careers. Certainly. I mean, Marshall has multiple road marches. Another one is not going to raise his salary by 50% or something like that. But in terms, and the other thing that I'm seeing, of course, is we have a very small community. 5 years ago, you and Marshall, you was writing diss tracks. They said Marshall, and then you're writing, you're sending them come over this, and they send them a road march this year, right? So it doesn't make kind of this idea, and I think you kind of hinted at it, that we don't necessarily hold grudges as long as some people do, right? So, but in terms of what you're talking about, and I know that you your day job, you kind of hinted at, you told us actually you're a senior manager and a strategy manager in terms of how we kind of craft the business of music as it was, and it's kind of the kind of theme of the music. We have a soca industry, and we obviously talk about it here often on Music Matters. But in terms of your ideas of what is good management, good is bad management, what works and what does not work, just give us a short overview of what you think could work or does not work. What would you change? What would you not change within the soca industry? Because I'm keen to hear what your ideas are. If you don't mind.
Within the soca industry, sure. So I'll focus on a particular part of the industry. I think it is so unfortunate that we have an industry where we have, let's call it 80 artists that maybe put forth a contribution every year, call it 80 to 100, including those you may not know. And you have maybe 25 to 30 that you could say you know them by name recognition. And maybe that same 25 to 30 have songs in heavy rotation on radio. But somehow the industry only has space for 7 to 10 of them to be able to make economic viability of their career. I don't know when it got that drastic, but it is unfortunate, I think, that we're in a scenario where you can hear artist song and play wheel left, right, and center. They put out work that's been received, and they're not getting hired. They aren't able to eke out a proper living in a carnival season. And if you're not able to do that in the season, it's going to be very difficult for you to have a successful touring year unless you have a significant catalog. And even then, it's hard. And we tend to find promoters just hiring the same batch of artists over and over. This year, thankfully, there was a bit of a deviation because you had kind of some breakout stars like the Young Brothers, you had the Full Blowns, you had the Black Adams toward the end of the season. But one of the things I lament about the industry is that we have gone from a place and space where you can have 25, 30 artists being able to really make a living to now it being narrowed to 10.
What I saw this year that really disturbed me is that there were no female artists who broke out in a big way. Yeah. Like when Nyla broke with Come Home and then I mean, yes, every female artist, we know the names, right? I think Destro opted out this year in terms of performance, but none of them were had major hits and none of them were, as you said, in heavy rotation anyway.
Except Fan Road Beaten.
At the end.
Sorry. But of all the women, she's the one who had.
Yeah, she's the one who had one. But a number of men really, as I said, Blacker than GBM, Neutron, Full Blown, all of them came out. Of course, Young Brother this year. Yeah. And that was the one thing that thing. But so what you're saying to me is that
I wish there was a wider net. I wish there was a wider net cast by the promoters, by the event committees in terms of curating a show over and above just getting the people that the last promoter got. And just the opportunity that, success doesn't have to be defined by you being in one of the top 10. Because if you have to have a top 10 song to make a living in the industry that year, then it's going to encourage or breed a real crab in a barrel mentality. And that competitive nature, I think, is going to bring a lot of bad things. We talk a lot about competition and what competition does to the industry. I don't think it's the competitions that Tuco puts on that has the ill effect. Road March not affecting people's ability to eat. Where I think the competition is that is destroying the industry is the competition to have to be amongst the top 10 to be able to eat. Is that survival of the fittest? To me, that is the competition. That is detrimental.
So the pool of money is just too small to support more than 10 people?
I don't think the pool is...
When I say pool of money, the ecosystem in terms of fetch, broadcast, royalties, everything.
Somehow the ecosystem has come where the pie is not spread as wide as it could be.
Yeah, but I think DJs also have a role, and radio stations have a role to play in that, as well as the artists.
I think the artists have a role.
There seems all three have a role, as far as I'm concerned, because when on the artist side, there's a certain sweet spot, a certain time frame in which your song needs to be out. I was hearing people putting out songs 2 weeks before Carnival, but by that time, so many people put out music, and artists put out we had individual artists putting out multiple songs that it reached a point by mid-February, people were overwhelmed because it takes the Trinidadian public a while to latch on to what's new, right? So by mid-January, coming on to the end of January, that's when people now starting to pay attention to the new Soca. By mid-February, you're kind of overwhelmed. And so I think a lot of songs, there's some really wonderful songs that just got lost in the whole thing.
But Laura, I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about the songs that didn't get lost. Songs that beaten on the radio. Look how many, and I'm going to call names, right? Why have I not seen Ufanals on a stage in Carnival? Ufanals released songs from earlier and I was beating on radio, Masco play.
But with Ufan, that's been happening. That's been happening for a while now. So we need to understand why certain artists don't get the stage time.
But even Nadia had very good songs that came out very on I don't know why. It's almost as if people make their picks of who's going to get hired in the season.
And they still rigid to that.
Yes.
The doors get shut. I don't understand it. I can call 4 or 5 other artists that had songs bubbling in rotation, songs that DJs were playing parties, and somehow the numbers were getting called. And I just wish that there was a wider net cast on a year-by-year basis.
Sorry,
You go
Nigel. No, I
ahead.
was going to say the promoters too need to be able to take a risk and not just hire who they think the public want to see.
Yeah.
Agreed.
As I said, they also have a responsibility. Everybody having the same cookie cutter event. And so if you hear people say every year, if I go 5 fets a year and the same songs are seen the same artists.
Yes,
And
that's
that
a
gets
fact.
boring after a while.
That is a fact, yeah.
You know.
One of the things you spoke about how long these songs take. C15, that music finance company that run by Lauren O'Connor, they had put together kind of list where they kind of basically mapped out when did the song drop and of course what became Road March and things, the Road March songs effectively. And certainly up to pandemic, it only got like about 12, 15 years. Before pandemic, the kind of average was like about a month, right?
Yeah.
Before Carnival, effectively. However, for the last 2 years, DNA was like 100 days before Carnival that thing dropped. And Hard Fet was about 80-something days, right? More than 2 months, right? And I'm just thinking that possibly there's something that, of course, that has been a constant conversation here about we have this narrow window between Boxing Day and Ash Wednesday is approximately 60 days.
Yeah.
More or less, generally, over time, even with a long season. And that's it. And of course, the opportunities to travel, you've already identified only about 10, if so many, are going to have an opportunity to travel based on the hits. Young Brother certainly this year will have some opportunities, right? They always have at least 1 or 2 breakout artists. Yeah. But there are a number of artists whose catalogs may not be as full as Marshall's 40-year catalog, 40-plus year catalog, right? So that the idea of trying to fit a whole music industry into 2 months out of 12 months, we've already beat that over and over and over again, and we recognize that doesn't make a difference. But there's also, I think, because of what I'm seeing in terms of just the Road March calculations, you can actually have a song that is being out for 100 days. and Carnival Tuesday, people still want to hear it.
No, for sure. The landscape has changed. I think the whole Road March conversation is very different now. Two things, I think, two of the major changes of this. One, you're right. We are taking a lot longer to soak, for songs to soak. It's taking the population a lot longer for whatever reason. What tends to happen is by the time the rest of the public switches on in January, they are focused on what's already bubbling. Give me the top 10 hits that happened from December, November, and that's what I focus on. That's what I do.
And that's it.
Right? And you touched on some of it, right? Hard Fet. Hard Fet was the first Road March out of the pandemic. Hard Fet came out. Yeah, you mentioned
it's 80-something days. Yeah, it was about 80-something days before Carnival Tuesday.
And as much as Come Home was a strong contender that came out, it just couldn't catch up, right?
No.
Look, the next year, DNA, and as strong as Carnival Contract was as a competitor, couldn't catch up.
Didn't catch up. Yeah. And
this year, Carry It, and as strong as Pardy was as a contender, almost didn't catch up. 17 days, right? So, trust me, the early bird, and that is something Kitch Colonel is going to say, the early bird in this era is the early bird. That's
catches the worm.
That's one. The second thing is people, at least I don't think people are very interested. Before Road March used to be about what is the song most appropriate to cross a stage for.
Ask Laura.
Yeah. That was what Road March was about. There's an element of that still, but I think the days of releasing a song talking about the stage and we rocking left or right, and I think those days done. What's happening now is that Road March is effectively now the people's choice. Yes. What is the power soca, or even sometimes the groovy soca, that is my favorite, that moves me, that I'm going to either sing, jump on that moment on the stage. So now it's less about a stage song. Now it's about what is the song I choose for my moment, and it will be the song of the carnival. So now the Road March is what is the song of the carnival.
Although I would dispute though that there is still an element of yes, it is the people's choice always. It's always been the people's choice, I think, but it's not every song that works on that stage. It's not every song. Because there's still that emotional pull. That's the thing with a Road March, a stage song. There's that emotional pull. So, for instance, Savannah Grass, wonderful song, beautiful song, did not work on stage. And all you could fight me, I said.
As a recording or a road mix?
I said what I said. I played mass that year When I hit the stage, they were playing Savannah Grass. I was like, no, this does not work. It fell flat.
Laura,
So
let me tell you
there's
something.
still that emotional
Let me tell you
thing.
something. If Savannah Grass came out post-pandemic and it was not up against something as strong as Family, because Family is a strong.
Family was a
It
hit.
was a strong-
Family was a hit from the word go.
Savannah Grass
was a
would beat
strong song.
Savannah Grass would have beat railroad matches. It just run up again.
Andrew, no, it did not work on stage. And this didn't have anything to do with Family. It did not work. For me as a masquerader, it did not work on stage. It didn't do what it should have done for me as a masquerader. And I will die on that hill. And Kes, I love you, and I love Savannah Grass. But it didn't do for me as a masquerader.
There will be
As I tell you, ask Laura.
There will be Savannah Grasses winning Road March in the next 2 or 3 years.
That's why I tell Ole, I have yet to not call a road march. I instinctively know what works and what does not work on that stage.
Well, I will send my demo for next year.
Please and thank you.
So don't worry, really. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate that.
But as we're talking about Power Soca, let's talk a little bit about Power. So we want to get into who you are and the work that you do. And there's some questions coming out of what you said just now that I want to ask. But as we're talking about Power, now I remember some years ago when Colonel and Marshall had won one of their many road marches together. I remember interviewing Colonel about this is Colonel Roberts, for those who are wondering, Kitch, popularly known as Kitch, who really was responsible for a lot of really great Power songs and road marches. And we were talking about Power and the skill in writing a Power soca, because it was felt at the time Power was dying against the wave of groovy. That Power was dying as though that songwriters didn't know how to write Power soca. They didn't know. We have a new generation of songwriters who didn't grow up in the era Nigel and I grew up with, the era of Super Blue and you know the chaos of the public fetes that don't know about the big bands and didn't experience that, so they didn't know how to write a Power soca. And as you say now, you know, it's not about writing about stage and weaving and jumping up. There are other topics now coming into the fray. So for you, what is the key now to writing Power? I mean, we see Bungie still trying to keep that whole Power thing alive, invoking nostalgia for us in his song lyrics, which makes the songs almost spiritual. There are still people, we see Voice, there are still people who are trying to do Power. Marshall still doing Power, still trying to keep it alive, but it's definitely not Power as we knew it years ago. It's a different type of Power. So for you, what are the elements do you think that really is going, as you said, was going to drive Power going forward? But do you think that Trinidad and Tobago could reclaim a space where we were known for Power? Because that is the biggest criticism you hear when people come here. People expecting to, booyah or jab music has taken over. People want that kind of the Vincy music. People want that kind of wildness that we knew back then. So are we I'm asking multiple questions in this whole long diatribe. But do you think that in all of this that we are leading the way into what the new Power soca sounds like, or have we lost the plot?
So let me start with Power in terms of my thesis on Power soca in Trinidad and Tobago, because we have our own uniqueness about ourselves and our people. And so it's difficult to judge us against a Grenada or Barbados. What makes up Trinidad people we're very unique in that way. When Power soca started, right? I think people were just so happy in the catharsis of jumping and waving that it didn't really take much to get them to jump and wave. Right?
Good. Get a good beat and you're good to go.
Straight to the point.
Yeah.
Straight to the point. And so when you look at moving from Super into the other proponents like Iowa, it was straight to the point. It was the Messiah Hanana. I don't have to tell you why. I just have to tell you too. I believe Power now in Trinidad, at least what works for me, is you have to give Trinis a reason to jump. So it's not about telling them to jump. So the days of just coming out of Power and saying, we're going to cause a bacchanal. You have to evoke an emotion in them that causes a reaction, which is why My style of power is storytelling. I believe power soca is set up to tell a story. So even my most, I would say, the closest thing to old school power I have it is Savannah, right? It was all they're getting there. This is not a fetting here. This is madness on the road. What you waiting for? Everything we did before was practice. Now the real thing starts. The madness starts. It was telling a story. Stage gone bad. When I went to Panorama, the stage was good. I come back with him, but when I come back on Carnival Day, and I hear the evoking that emotion, right? Come home, telling the story, right? A long narrative. Before him get you to jump, you don't sing it, don't you ever, whatever. By the time I reach, but I promise from today, I put everybody up.
So don't you ever let me down again. Cause I'm depending on you, so you better come through this time. Please hear my cry, and if I ever let you down, my friend, it was a misunderstanding. So if I took it for granted, don't I promise from today I go jump like I never jump, wave like I never wave, wine like I never wine before, just to show you a sorrow, and I need you back in my life. Look at people by the truck, emotions running high, we end up in the sky, just running down we high. Can't you tell that we sorrow, and we need you back in we high, and if I come back home.
I ain't telling them to jump. This is me telling my story. I promise, based on everything I don't tell you, that I'm going to jump, but you jumped in too because you felt the story. And it's the same thing with Pardy. It's storytelling. It's evoking emotion. That is how you get Trinis now to respond at 160 BPM. If you just come out with mash up the place, jump up, you're not going to be a bunch doing the same thing. Hard fat.
Stories,
lyrics.
Story
Yep.
Evoke and emotion now with power. In Grenada and some of those other territories where they still have the raw power, sometimes the stories don't need to be as long, they don't need to be as compelling. Sometimes it's more straight to the point, but in Trinidad, when somebody come up, dress up in a nice thing, and they heels, and they think, and their makeup, and they go out all inclusive, trust me, you have to convince them to jump. You have to tell, there needs to be something that unlocks in them when they're out of the cell. Right?
But do you think, Andre, that with this, there seems to be a yearning among the younger party goers now for the type of parties that I grew up in, that Nigel grew up with.
Yeah.
And you saw that with the response to Bunji's Hard Fet event, right? People want to just literally put on a jeans and a wallabies and a vest and go down and just get on bad, right? So he seems to have unlocked. Now, mind you, with his storytelling, he had to condition these people how to party. But he seems to have unlocked something, and you see it now. You see in all the videos now, everybody using footage from Skinner Park and Soca Monarch and those things. He's seen the comments that people are like, oh God, they have no phone, people partying. So there seems to be a yearning to go back to that era of partying. So do you think then that if we go in that direction, that we will still have to condition people's minds by using the storytelling, or we're going to go back to the just come straight out the gate and just party?
I think that would be very difficult. It will be surprising to see. Look, when you even look at the artists, the proponents now of power, they don't even have that style, right? Look at the people in power soca right now. Marshall is not really get straight to the point. Sometimes he is, but not so much. But she likes to tell a story. Voice is somebody in and around power a lot these days, and he likes to tell a story.
Yes.
So I think people are yearning for that ability to free up. If there is a new Iowa that emerges who could come and just boom bam, I think there's space for that. I definitely think there's space for somebody coming straight to the point, but they would have to make a compelling case to get that kind of power. Like something about that, they will need to. I don't know. Iowa just had the Iowa-ness. Iowa was just chosen, right? It was never Iowa. It was never Iowa.
No. When a man saying that, I say, we're going. I said, talk that.
But one thing about Iowa understood the ground, and Iowa understood how to sell a song.
Yep.
And if the radio stations didn't do it for him, he knew where to go to get it done.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and when you
So
look at the response to Iowa, even now, you still get the same response. So yes, there's a space for it. It's just a matter of who is the right person that can get away with it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things that I'm not hearing is you call about 3 or 4 names. We need to hear about 20 names that willing to do power. That's one, right? And I'm not hearing that yet, but I guess there's a whole new cabal coming forward. It's a new generation that is now coming forward, and as Laura and you have suggested, they're all yearning for more energy in the music. It's not just a matter of turn up the drum machine to 160 beats a minute and just sing fast. It's not. It's more than that, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
you have consistently doing power, and I've been like, I always get kudos to Charles. Every year, Charles giving you 1 or 2 power.
Every year.
Energy.
Every year.
Patricia usually give you a power or 2 every year. I don't want to miss out anybody, but there are the people who consistently will give you 2 or 3 power soca songs. Lyros, a man, every so often Skinny's a man will give you power.
Skinny, right?
So, yeah. So the ingredients are there, and I think we're in a much better place than we were 10 years ago in terms of power soca.
I think so too.
So we're trending in the right direction. I think it'll eventually find an equilibrium and balance. So find the right balance.
No, you're saying in the right direction. I'm assuming that's the right direction for Carnival. There was a video that was floating around earlier yesterday. Well, a foreigner who had come here wasn't very happy with the Carnival because all she was saying was groovy soca, right?
Yes, and no zest, no steam.
No steam, all that kind of stuff. Right? And I was thinking about it, and I was just saying, well, you probably you come to the wrong place, right? But the harsh reality is, I think in terms of a kind of understanding what soca is, I've always, and our very first podcast and this whole thing was about the globalization of soca. Soca is a Caribbean music, as it was. Yeah. Skinny is a Vincentian, and we have people from all of the other islands, producers from Dominica, St. Lucia, Grenada, wherever, who producing music that moves and drives masqueraders, and hopefully will move and drive partiers, even in Trinidad, in June, in August, right? Because if this is our music, this is our music, right? You can tell a story, and it doesn't necessarily have to, and as we've seen, it may or may not have to talk about Carnival. It may or may not have to talk about the stage, right? Agreed. So that we can actually have songs. I mean, Come Home was more or less like a return home post-pandemic kind of thing.
But we were trying to release the reason we were kind of rushing on when Marsha said we were moving on. We were trying to release Come Home this summer before it came out. And because we didn't find anyone, and then it's Skinny, and then it ended up with Nyland. That's what ended up being released in January. But it was meant to be like a late summer, let grow, because we knew we needed time.
I'm thinking that in terms of building out, because we've been looking at numbers and stats and all that kind of stuff, and we kind of acknowledge, yes, soca music is what drives the carnivals and the carnival celebrations globally, right? But in terms of the kind of broader music market, it doesn't drive numbers on Spotify, and the numbers are still low. When it's a factor of 10 on YouTube views and that kind of stuff and thing, right? You as a successful songwriter, person who has at least 2 road marches on their belt, and certainly a great second place song, it come home. A great second place song. But in terms of how you, and I know we kind of covered it kind of, but what do you think is a formula for a kind of non-carnival soca song, or a song that drives people? Let's call it that, a non-carnival soca song. What's that formula like?
Yeah, I think it could have been Pardy, to be honest. I think with a little bit of tweaking, something like a Pardy, where you're really talking about we deserve a party. That's a Friday night song. That's not gonna be a summer song.
Yes.
That's gonna be a summer song.
Yes.
It reminds me of as you say that, it reminds me of Rihanna's Cheers to the freaking weekend. Yeah. Party has legs.
Oh yeah, trust me. We don't start with that.
Are you part of? Are you on your production team, Mevon, Explicit Mevon, Justin Dissert and Kyle Phillips? Are you into the idea? Because something years ago, somebody had just floated a sentence to me that how at WOMEX, that conference, she said she would love to hear a DJ remix of all the soca songs, basically EDM remixes or disco remix, that kind of stuff. And I've heard on SoundCloud a couple producers, local producers, have kind of remixed some songs. I don't think they got permission, so they could release it commercially. But is that, as a songwriter and as a producer, is that something that is part of your arsenal to extend the life of a song? Yeah. Because I think that is something that I personally think is a no-brainer. But you're the songwriter. Absolutely. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I love hearing all the different mashups of my songs, because most of them, particularly starting with Come Home, where I really try to use other influences somewhere in the music. I have a thesis about pop music, right? I think pop music is pop music for a reason. It is popular music because the simplicity of the melodies soaks and resonates in a way that other music just does not. Which is why when you look at some of the top power soca songs, they're influenced by pop melodies, right?
Yes.
And so I write I tend to write a lot in an American accent and then work my way back. Like
Yankeeization?
I'm telling you, I tend to, right? Because it start with a sort of a international scene and then I work it back. And so I think for me, it feels good to see those different executions of it. I think particularly with Pardy, we have big plans for that. I think stay tuned.
An exclusive here, ladies and gentlemen.
We think that could be one of those ones. And so the team and MM and his team and the Monk Music team are kind of working to put that where we think it can be. I think it's an international message. It is. And it has a feel that can really go places. So fingers crossed I'll be able to break through that one.
It is highly relatable. There is no, it's like drink water and mind your business. Everybody in the world could relate to I work hard. I need a stress reliever. On Friday night, my friends and I, we went to Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Turksey after work lime. And from where we so well known, from the time that we walked in, the DJ started playing one set of soca, but he was playing 2024 soca. So I said, yo, you need some 2025 soca. What are you doing? So he started put on one set of 20, and then he played Pardy. By this point, we were singing and dancing, but we got up and started to dance. And it's only tourists around us. But this is the height of tourist season. So it's only tourists around us. And they started to dance. One of them actually came out to me and she held my hand and she started to jump up and she just having a time. And so I look at people's response to the song, non-West Indian people. That song has legs. That song could go far. That song could be a soundtrack to a movie. That song could be soundtrack to an ad. That song has legs. It could go very, 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 very far. It could be you could have all sorts of artists jumping on it, but in terms of the money making side of it, advertisements for sure. That should be the song of the party. Should be the song of the summer. Because it has legs. It has legs.
Does your company? I know Perception Management is your company. You have all of those. You have your synchronization manager, and you have all these kind of.
So we don't.
People ready.
It's just Andrew and I, but what I would say is specific for Pardy.
So no team?
Because we have obviously equity stake in this song, as do the other producers, as does Marshall and his team. You know, we know Marshall and his team are working.
Nice.
Working.
Nice.
We are collective unity in where Pardy is going. I don't want to say too much too early, but this could be this one will go. This one will go.
I could actually hear that as an EDM remix, and this is just because of the chant at the top of the song. And I said that's how they break it down, right? And kind of vocal, and then of course you drop and that kind of stuff. And I said this could go places, and the lyric is universal. It's one of the universal things.
I want to hear it outside of a festival. I want to hear it outside of a carnival. I do. Carnivals are given, but I want to hear it beyond carnival. So Andre, when you and I first met, you were not known as a songwriter. At least I didn't know you as a songwriter. you were doing events, and I think one of the events you told me you were doing was Lara's Lara's Chris Carnival party. It's Perception, and then you went into artist management and that kind of thing. You represented people like Iowa, Alison Hines. True Rome. So tell me about that aspect of Perception management. Are you still doing events? Are you still managing artists?
Absolutely. So Perception management is myself and Andrew Bailey, who's my best friend from high school and business partner, and he actually does quite a lot of the kind of day-to-day heavy lifting there, so big up Andrew. And we still continue in artist management. So under our portfolio now is Alison Hines, Rome. Rome was actually the first artist in 2015 that we started managing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
10
Did
years
not know
in Rome. And we still fight like it's day one all the time. And we also, so we started moving into managing kind of sports personality. So we have Nicholas Puran, West Indies cricketer on our management team as well. And we basically handle everything from the bookings to the business side of things. Obviously, we are both sort of businessmen and very business-minded. And so that's on the artist management side. We also still do specific events, still doing Lara Fest, which we have been doing since, I want to say, 2014.
Wow.
Yeah, we have a really good relationship with Brian. And
Don't burn that bridge.
I know, right?
You're managed, because this year he did quite a few events. I was so surprised. So you're managed that as well?
Yeah, so the Thursday event, which is a new event, 277, which was at the Millennium Golf Course.
Yeah.
Really well attended.
I saw that.
Sold out Thursday event. So I think that has a lot of legs for sure. And then obviously the Sunday all inclusive as well. And so, yeah, we just continue to look for kind of specific niches where we can add value. For us, we are starting to, want to trend a bit more into sports management. We think that's another just area where good business management and talent is required. But again, because management is such a people and time intensive thing, we really tend to be tapped out around 3 or 4 at any one time. We can really pour into. And then again, because my job keeps me busy, Andrew is a businessman separate and apart from perception. So we have to kind of balance, what we take on versus what we have the time to pour into.
What about events? I know during COVID, you did this Soca versus.
You remember? Yeah, that was fun. That was
nice. Andre, when you and I don't talk though, I was all up in that. And then Nigel reminded me he did an article when you were doing a DJ
international Soca DJ competition. I remember that. Yeah, 2016.
I was brainchild, and we were his execution team at that point.
You never had a second edition?
No, never had a second edition. I think that something else that had.
And that's a thing that could come back because DJs seem to be dominating Carnival more than singers. So
for sure, but yeah, we so I wouldn't call us I think we do like bespoke events. Typically with ideas we generate. In the pandemic, it was sort of playing off of the verses that was happening, and we couldn't really go outside, and we had struck up a good partnership with Digicel, who came on to be the title sponsor, and we had. We had a couple good ones. We wanted a couple more, but I think it was very difficult to get artists, Soca artists not really in the sort of battle mode, clash mode. So we were able to do Skinny Fabulous and Lyrical, and then Patrice and Allison. I think that's something that could be really cool, maybe as an event, like in the Carnival, the people coming out. I think that could be a super cool sort of catalog versus catalog, but an event. And you have Team X versus Team Y. People come in their colors, depending on who they're supporting. It can be fun, So I think, we always thinkers, Andrew and I, and always trying to push the envelope. But I definitely wouldn't call us sort of full-time event managers. But, where there's opportunity, where we see a niche, we do that. We also did Carnivas Thursdays, which was when Vast Club
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
A weekly Thursday where we'd bring artists in to perform live. At that time, there wasn't really a lot
in Rush Street?
Yeah, right.
Yes. Yes, I remember that.
And again, it was a niche, right? The club had just opened. We had got close to the club owners. And at that time, there was not a lot of intimate performance settings for artists. There's some of that now. But back in that sort of 2018 time frame, you weren't able to go outside of a big event to see artists, one. And on the other side, there were a lot of artists not getting hired for big events. So we felt like that was a nice middle ground to get the artists performing in front of a fan base early in the season to hopefully boost their chances of getting hired for bigger events later on. And we did like 2 seasons of it. Yeah.
Andre Jeffers running the damn thing, man. Look at you.
Why holding down a full-time, a serious
a
full-time
serious
job.
as a corporate in the C-suite of a major conglomerate in the Caribbean.
Wheeling and dealing, but finding time for
The man
carnival.
thought
I love
$300 million deal and again, watch it there. We're separate on things. I mean, this has been an interesting conversation. I'm very happy that you are part of the ecosystem because this is my snob. Sorry about this, but I've always suggested, and it's not really a snobbish thing, but the idea of people in the business of music should really have, unfortunate or fortunate, a tertiary level education, right? I'm not suggesting that everybody who doesn't have a tertiary education can't be a business person. It's foolish, and I'm never going to suggest that, right? But because you've had that tertiary education, because you exist in an environment outside of soca, where you're engaging in private sector, and certainly private sector at a very high corporate level that understands profit and loss and getting fired if you do deliver, you're also able to apply some of that within your decision making and your idea creation within soca, within your event management. I know you're getting into sports management, as you just suggested there. And I think that is a direction that a lot of people should really think about getting into. It's not, I'm not against creativity, but in terms of ideas and in terms of the people who are going to lead this ecosystem and lead this Trinidad and Tobago music industry forward, it may not necessarily come from a soca artist or a pan player. It may come from a person with an MBA.
True.
Right. So that is something that I'm very happy that you're part of, and you're part of that ecosystem. And it's really great to have a conversation with you today.
Awesome.
So what's next for you, Andrea? I know now that you're famous, you're a celebrity.
Your name is there.
Your story going viral.
I am very much looking forward to returning to my substantive.
You see? Look at that. The man dropped the music. Carnival done, he's done. I have to go back and wheel and deal.
I'm very much
mergers and acquisitions.
The normalcy. I a lot of people go to a job. I really, really enjoy my job. I really enjoy what I do every day.
Nice.
And so, for me, it's just about getting back into the routine. This season, particularly if you have a contender, can be very intense. And so you need sometimes that counterbalance of intense refrain. Till such time that you're able to recharge. So I'm looking forward to just unplugging. I'm looking forward to working with the Monk Music team in terms of getting Pardy to where we think it can and should go.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
And then looking forward to seeing what's next creatively for me. Maybe May, June time after I've totally unplugged and observed the world to see where I think the next sound sounds like. I feel like
the next destination for music. Next thing you could be in Dubai.
Yeah.
What if Answer McCall send you out there and say, listen, we want to get to the energy industries, and we need to send you out there?
You're right.
Because you have a corporate job, and your job you could move it anywhere in the world. Literally, right? So the idea of retaining some knowledge of what we have, and obviously your skill to make it happen anywhere in the world, and all of a sudden we keep the conduit for our artists to get there. I ain't giving any ideas, but just in case, 5%.
From your lips to God is.
I hear you. All the best. Laura, what's happening?
Andre, this has been a wonderful conversation. I am really just so riveted by your nuggets of wisdom, particularly as it concerns Soca Monarch. I mean, Road Power March. Soca. And the way you've analyzed, really looked at the industry and analyzed what is going on and why we as Trinidadians what it takes to move us now as a people. That will stick with me for a long time because I find it utterly fascinating, and it really begs the question: what has been happening in Trinidad that has not been happening in other islands to make us now become we led the way when it came to this music, and now we're the ones we have to tell our story, we have to convince our people to want to behave a certain way. I find that is a fascinating thing for me, and something I'm going to try and figure out what is behind that. But thank you so much for taking time off from, because I know your phone is blowing up and your DMs are hot, I'm sure. So thank you for taking time for us. I appreciate it so much, and congratulations again, and continue to reach for the stars, man. I look forward to see where Pardy goes this year. I really
Pardy is going to be a global hit. From my lips to God's ears, that's it. I'm saying it because the lyric is perfect, and that's EDM remix. Knock it out to the park, brother. All the best to you, and all the best to you, and congrats.
All right, thanks for having me.
Sure, not a problem. Okay then.
Take care.
Bye.
Another wonderful conversation with the man of the hour, Andre Jeffers, Nigel.
Yes.
Really great nuggets.
Literally the hottest signatory in Trinidad on Sunday.
Yes,
Was the 9th? Yeah, the 9th of
yes,
March.
9th of March. Really good conversation.
Yeah. So that is good. And I'm happy that we was able to understand, to use as I said, there's a certain amount of intelligence that comes with working at a higher level in terms of corporate, in terms of reasoning and understanding. But his analysis of what the ecosystem of Trinidad Carnival music, Trinidad music industry is all about, I think that was important. And understanding what makes or what does not make power soca, what changed it. He has an opinion, and I think that's very important to understand in terms of where our music is going and where our music can and shall be going soon, and sooner rather than later. So that's what it is today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad that you'll be hearing the show. As usual, podcast at iRadio.tt. Check us out on Facebook, on Instagram, Music Matters Caribbean. And just tell us what you want to hear. We have some more interviews lined up coming up soon. And Carnival is over. Soca will never done.
Soca for life.
Soca for life. So this is a Soca session, and we're happy that you've been part of it. And I am Nigel Campbell.
And I'm Laura Dowrich, and you've been listening to Music Matters.
Caribbean edition. Bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for listening to Music Matters, the Caribbean edition. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, subscribe, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Music Matters Caribbean. And if you want to listen to our previous podcasts and keep up with our new material, check out the website podcast.iradio.tt or listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and more of your favorite podcast platforms.